So today we're going to take a look at a scenario where NATO goes to war against the Arab League. These are two fairly strong alliances, and so some of you were wondering what would happen if the two went to war. Well, lucky for you, we're going to find out today. Before we get into the scenario, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. All support is greatly appreciated as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by end of this year. So yeah, let's get right into the scenario. So the Arab League is mostly here in northern Africa, as well as in the Arabian Peninsula. They do have these islands down here, but France also has this island here, so they can probably do some fighting around Madagascar. Now, you're probably looking at this and thinking it's kind of obvious who's going to win, but, well, each team has their number of allies in this region. For example, NATO has Israel, and they would definitely join this war. And if Israel joined, then so would Iran. Another NATO ally would be Azerbaijan. Another ally for the blue team would be Armenia. And then we could even keep going and put Georgia on the red team, and then Russia on the blue team, and then Ukraine and Belarus. But that's a whole different scenario, so they're not going to be doing that. We're going to stop here. And that's really what it's going to be for now. So now enough talking. Let's get right into the fighting. So right away we have Turkey pushing down into Syria, as well as Iraq, and down into Lebanon, taking out the whole country. They and Azerbaijan also start a campaign to take out Armenia, and they do so successfully. And we have Spain making a landing in northern Morocco, and that would really be about it for a while. Down in Somalia, we have Somaliland declaring independence and joining the red team. From there they take out Djibouti, and continue to push down into Somalia, and taking out this island of Yemen. France takes out these islands, and Israel takes out Palestine, and they start to push over into Jordan and Syria. Now we actually have some of these North African countries doing something that's pretty smart. They declare war on Malta and take over the country. Why, you might ask? Well, they're going to use this as a staging grounds in order to advance farther into Europe. From there they make a landing in Sicily and take out most of the island, as Italy wasn't really expecting this so soon. They do this with a couple other islands, including Cyprus and Crete, and Morocco takes out these Spanish islands. Back over in the Middle East, Turkey continues to push through Syria, and they push down into Iraq, as well as into Jordan. We now see Egypt start to push into southern Israel, and Algeria makes a landing in southern Sardinia. They also make a landing on the Italian peninsula, and this goes quite well. Eventually they take over all of this island, and the 3 Spanish islands. Spain continues to advance in northern Morocco, taking out a lot of the Mediterranean coast, and pushing over into Algeria. Down south in the Horn of Africa, we actually have Ethiopia joining the red team, same as South Sudan and Kenya. And from there they push over into Somalia, and the country surrenders. They also push northwards into Sudan, and this campaign goes quite well. They mostly focus along the Nile, as that's where a lot of the population is. At least for Egypt, I'm not quite sure about Sudan, but I would assume it's mostly over here. Maybe there's some over here, I'm not sure. You can let me know in the comments. But they mostly focus on the eastern region, as well as down by their border with Chad. Back up north, Iran starts a campaign into Azerbaijan, taking out most of their coasts along the Caspian Sea, eventually taking all of it, and pushing through the rest of the country. Take over their exclave, and begin to push into Armenia. Eventually take over almost all of Azerbaijan, and push over into Turkey slightly. We have Algeria risking their luck and making a landing on Corsica. This, of course, does not go very well. France and Italy begin to take back these lands one by one. Spain takes back their islands here, and Italy fully liberates their peninsula, and they make a landing in Sicily. Greece and Turkey take back Crete, as well as Cyprus. Well, I guess they're kind of occupying Cyprus. Same with if they took over Malta, then they'd kind of be occupying them, since they never technically joined their team, but they kind of did. Anyway, Sicily is fully liberated, and NATO now occupies Malta, and they make a landing in Tunisia. Using their superior navy, they also make a landing in Algeria, and one in Libya and Tunisia. They push over and they capture Libya's capital, and they wrap around the Tunis coast, capturing their capital and forcing the country to surrender. Eventually their campaign in Tunisia meets up with their one in Algeria, and this campaign goes quite well, as they broaden their front line. Spain, along with the US, pushes down the Moroccan coast, and now we actually see Niger and Mali joining this war on the side of the Arab League, and then Nigeria on the side of NATO. Why? Well, Niger Niger and Mali are close to some of these North African countries. And then Nigeria, they just kind of want to expand. So right away we have Nigeria pushing up into southern Niger. And their campaign goes quite well, as Nigeria is definitely stronger than these two countries. And they push in. They captured actually a lot of land quite fast. And just as fast as they join this war, they leave this war. And they'll go and do up their own peace treaty. So Nigeria did take a little bit of land from the two countries, but they should be fine. And with this, Nigeria has a lot of momentum, and they might just keep going with a lot of these smaller African countries. So watch out for that for the rest of the video. Anyways, back to the original conflict. Spain continues to push through Morocco. Their campaign is doing much better now, as a lot of their populated areas are now taken over. Their whole coast is now gone, and a lot of their southern areas. And they now push into Algeria. Eventually Morocco does surrender. We actually do see Algeria pushing into southern Tunisia and pushing back against France and Italy. Along with Libya, they almost fully push them out of Africa, splitting them into two. But once reinforcements arrive, it doesn't go that well for them, as Tunisia is retaken, and European troops begin to flood into the countries. All of Algeria's coast is taken, and NATO continues to push through the country. Eventually, with the US, we see these countries making a landing in Yemen. Then this goes quite well. Turkey pushes down into Saudi Arabia, and a lot more of Iraq. Turkey meets the front line with Egypt, and they begin to push them back. Eventually, Turkey pushes over the border with Egypt, and Jordan capitulates. Turkey takes out a lot of the Suez area, and pushes over to Cairo and Alexandria. They continue to push down the coast and the Nile River, and the Red Team's campaign into Sudan is going quite well, as a lot of the eastern region has fallen, and eventually this whole region of eastern Egypt falls, and so does the rest of Sudan. And there's basically nothing here in Egypt, it's just desert, so that surrenders. And they push over into northeastern Libya. They push out along the coast, meeting up with their other campaign, and then they brought in their front line and continue to push into the desert. We now see Iran liberating all of Armenia, and Azerbaijan capitulates. From there they push over into Turkey, and they push out from Iraq. Back in southern Arabia, Yemen actually surrenders, and they're able to push into Saudi Arabia, and into Oman. After a few more weeks of fighting, most of southern Arabia is taken, and they continue to push up until they're eventually stalemated with Iran and Saudi Arabian forces. The US attempts to make a landing in southern Iran, but this fails, and now both sides are actually going to go and do up a peace treaty because they don't even know why they're fighting this war in the first place. Okay, and so now taking a look at this peace treaty, we can see the borders are very different now. Now with everything colored in, the red is obviously NATO, and the blue is the Arab League. The light red is kind of NATO puppet states / occupied areas, so Egypt and Libya were combined. NATO now occupies the Suez area. Israel grew a lot, annexing all of Palestine and Lebanon and some of Egypt and Syria. Turkey annexed almost all of Syria and some of Iraq. And Iran annexed a little bit of eastern Turkey and most of Azerbaijan. Armenia is now unrecognizable. The US now occupies most of Yemen and some of southern Saudi Arabia. And the same for the UK with Oman and the UAE and Qatar, as they mostly use this region for oil and other resources like that. In the Horn of Africa, all these NATO allies down here gained a lot of land. Somaliland is now independent, and they also annexed Djibouti. Italy annexed all of Tunisia and northern Libya. France now controls northern Algeria. Spain controls almost all of Morocco, and the US controls some of southern Morocco and a small bit of Algeria. But yeah, so that is going to be it for today's video. Know if you enjoyed it in the comments below. Leave any video suggestions or other feedback below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.